What if I told you that the one food you've been overlooking your entire life, the one sitting quietly in the grocery store for less than $1, is actually more powerful for building muscle than eggs, more effective than most protein powders, and backed by cutting-edge science that most doctors still haven't caught up with? And what if I told you this matters even more as you get older, that at 60, at 70, even at 80 years old, your muscles are still capable of growing, still capable of getting stronger, and that this one simple, affordable food could be the key that unlocks all of that? Stay with me because what I'm about to share with you today is going to completely change the way you think about food, about aging, and about what your body is truly capable of. I'm Dr. William Lee, and if you've been following my work, you know that I don't just talk about what's popular. I talk about what the science actually says. I've spent decades studying how the body heals itself, how nutrition interacts with our biology at the deepest cellular level, and what the latest research is telling us about aging, muscle loss, and longevity. And today, I want to have a very honest, very real conversation with you about something that affects every single person watching this video. The gradual, silent loss of muscle that begins in your 30s and accelerates with every decade that passes. This condition even has a name. It's called sarcopenia, and it is one of the most underrated health crises of our time. We talk endlessly about heart disease, about diabetes, about cancer, and yes, all of those are critically important, but we almost never talk about muscle loss. And here's why we should be talking about it every single day. When you lose muscle, you don't just lose strength. You lose your ability to walk without falling. You lose your independence. You lose your metabolism because muscle is one of the most metabolically active tissues in your entire body. When muscle shrinks, your blood sugar regulation gets worse, your inflammation goes up, your energy goes down, and your risk of every major chronic disease skyrockets. Muscle is not just about looking good. Muscle is about living well and living long. Now, most people, when they think about building muscle, immediately think about protein, and they think about eggs. Eggs have been the gold standard for decades. They're held up as the perfect protein source, the benchmark against which everything else is measured. And look, I'm not here to completely dismiss eggs. They are a good food, but I am here to tell you that the research has moved on, and there is a food, a humble, inexpensive, widely available food, that in many ways outperforms eggs when it comes to muscle building, especially as we age, and that food is lentils. Yes, lentils. Those small, unassuming little legumes that have been feeding civilizations for thousands of years. Before you click away, before you say, Dr. Lee, I thought lentils were just for vegetarians, or I thought plant protein wasn't as good as animal protein. I need you to give me the next few minutes, because the science here is genuinely extraordinary. And by the end of this video, you're going to see lentils in a completely different light. Let me start with the protein conversation, because this is where most people get it wrong. For years, we've been told that plant proteins are incomplete, that they don't have all the essential amino acids your body needs to build muscle. And while it's true that most individual plant proteins don't have the exact same amino acid profile as eggs or meat, lentils are actually remarkably close. They are particularly rich in leucine, and leucine is the king of muscle-building amino acids. Leucine is the amino acid that directly activates what scientists call mTOR, which is essentially the master switch for muscle protein synthesis. When leucine hits your bloodstream, your body gets a very clear signal: build muscle now. And lentils deliver meaningful amounts of leucine in every single serving. But here's what makes lentils even more interesting. It's not just about the protein, it's about the entire package that comes with the protein. When you eat eggs, you get protein and fat. That's largely it. When you eat lentils, you get protein, you get complex carbohydrates, you get fiber, enormous amounts of fiber, and you get an astonishing array of polyphenols, antioxidants, and bioactive compounds that do something eggs simply cannot do. They feed your gut microbiome, they reduce inflammation, and they create the ideal internal environment for muscle repair and growth. You see, building muscle isn't just about eating protein. It's about creating the conditions inside your body where that protein can actually be used effectively, and lentils do that in a way that almost no other food can match. Let me talk about inflammation for a moment because this is crucial, especially for older adults. As we age, our bodies tend to drift into a state of chronic low-grade inflammation. Scientists call it inflammaging, and this chronic inflammation is one of the primary reasons why muscle building becomes harder as we get older. Inflammation interferes with muscle protein synthesis. It breaks down muscle faster than your body can rebuild it. It makes recovery from exercise slower and less complete. So, when you're 60, 70, or 80, and you're wondering why you're not getting the same results from exercise that you used to get, inflammation is a massive part of the answer. Now, here's where lentils become truly remarkable. The polyphenols in lentils, these are plant compounds with names like procyanidins, flavonoids, and phenolic acids, are among the most potent anti-inflammatory agents in the natural food world. When you eat lentils regularly, you are literally fighting the inflammation that is sabotaging your muscle-building efforts at the cellular level. You are creating a biological environment where your muscles can respond to exercise more effectively, where recovery happens faster, and where the amino acids you consume are used more efficiently. Eggs don't do this. Protein powder doesn't do this, but lentils do. And then there's the gut microbiome connection, which I find endlessly fascinating. The fiber in lentils, both soluble and insoluble, feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut, particularly a family of bacteria that produce something called short-chain fatty acids. These short-chain fatty acids, especially one called butyrate, have a direct and profound effect on muscle health. Research has shown that butyrate enhances the sensitivity of muscle cells to insulin, which means your muscles are better able to absorb glucose and amino acids from the bloodstream. It also appears to have a direct anabolic effect on muscle tissue, meaning it actively promotes muscle growth independent of protein intake. This is cutting-edge science. This is the kind of research that is reshaping how we understand the relationship between gut health and physical performance. And lentils, through their extraordinary fiber content, are one of the best foods on the planet for driving this entire process. I also want to talk about something called anabolic resistance because this is the central challenge of muscle building after 50. Anabolic resistance simply means that as we get older, our muscles become less responsive to the same protein signals that worked so well when we were young. A 25-year-old can eat 20 grams of protein and get a robust muscle-building response. A 65-year-old eating the same 20 grams might get a fraction of that response. This is why so many older adults feel like they're doing everything right but still losing muscle. The signal is there, but the muscle isn't hearing it as clearly anymore. Several mechanisms contribute to anabolic resistance: chronic inflammation, poor gut health, reduced blood flow to muscle tissue, hormonal changes, and lentils address multiple of these simultaneously. The anti-inflammatory polyphenols combat the inflammation that blunts the muscle signal. The fiber-driven microbiome improvements enhance insulin sensitivity, and lentils also contain significant amounts of arginine, an amino acid that is a precursor to nitric oxide in the body. Nitric oxide is a powerful vasodilator. It opens up your blood vessels and increases blood flow to your muscles, which means more oxygen, more nutrients, and more of those precious amino acids reaching the muscle tissue where they're needed most. Better blood flow to muscle is one of the key mechanisms for overcoming anabolic resistance, and lentils help drive it. Now, I want to give you the numbers because I think they're important. 1 cup of cooked lentils contains approximately 18 grams of protein. For comparison, 2 large eggs contain about 12 grams. So, gram for gram of food, lentils actually deliver more protein than eggs. That cup of lentils also gives you roughly 16 grams of fiber, which is more than half the recommended daily intake for most adults. It gives you folate, iron, magnesium, potassium, zinc, and B vitamins in impressive quantities. And it does all of this for somewhere between 50 cents and $1 per serving, depending on where you shop. I want you to really sit with that for a moment. An incredibly nutrient-dense, muscle-supporting, inflammation-fighting, gut-healing food that costs less than $1 per serving. This is not a supplement. This is not a pharmaceutical. This is a food that has been available to humanity for 10,000 years, and modern science is only now catching up to understanding just how powerful it truly is. Let me also address the digestibility question because I know it comes up. Some people say that plant proteins are harder to digest, and that the protein in lentils isn't as bioavailable as the protein in eggs. And historically, that's had some truth to it. But here's what the research now shows. When you prepare lentils properly, and this is important, when you soak them, cook them thoroughly, and ideally pair them with foods that contain vitamin C, the bioavailability of their protein increases significantly. Combining lentils with something as simple as a squeeze of lemon juice or some tomatoes dramatically enhances iron and protein absorption. And when lentils are a regular part of your diet, your gut microbiome actually adapts and becomes more efficient at breaking down and absorbing the nutrients they contain. The digestibility argument against lentils is largely a short-term argument for people who aren't used to eating them. Over time, your gut gets better and better at extracting every bit of nutrition from them. I also want to talk about the hormonal side of muscle building because this is something many people don't think about in relation to food. As men age, testosterone levels decline. As women go through menopause, estrogen and progesterone changes create new challenges for muscle maintenance. These hormonal shifts contribute to muscle loss and make building new muscle more difficult. But here's something fascinating. The zinc content in lentils plays a meaningful role in supporting testosterone production. Zinc is one of the key minerals involved in the synthesis of testosterone, and many older adults are mildly deficient in zinc without even knowing it. Getting adequate zinc from food sources like lentils is one of the simplest and most underappreciated strategies for supporting healthy hormone levels as you age. And let me talk about blood sugar because this matters enormously for muscle health in ways most people don't realize. When your blood sugar spikes repeatedly throughout the day, which happens when you eat a lot of refined carbohydrates and sugary foods, you drive up insulin levels, you promote fat storage, you increase inflammation, and over time you can develop insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is devastating for muscle health because insulin is one of the key hormones that helps drive amino acids into muscle cells. When your muscles become resistant to insulin, even if you're eating plenty of protein, less of it is getting into the muscles where it needs to go. Lentils have an extraordinarily low glycemic index. They cause a very slow, gradual rise in blood sugar rather than a spike. This keeps insulin functioning properly, keeps your blood sugar stable, and creates the ideal hormonal environment for muscle protein synthesis to occur. This is another way that lentils aren't just matching eggs, they're doing something eggs cannot do. Now, I want to speak directly to those of you who are in your 60s, 70s, or 80s because I know many of you feel like it might be too late. You feel like the muscle building window has closed, that your body just doesn't work the way it used to, that no matter what you do, you can't seem to hold on to the muscle you have, let alone build new muscle. I want to look you in the eye right now and tell you something that the research makes absolutely clear. It is never too late. Multiple studies have shown that adults in their 70s and 80s who begin resistance exercise and optimize their nutrition can build significant amounts of muscle in just 8 to 12 weeks. We are talking about measurable, meaningful increases in muscle mass and strength in people who are in their 9th decade of life. Your body never loses the capacity to respond to the right signals. What changes with age is how efficiently those signals are delivered, and that is exactly where smart nutrition, including foods like lentils, becomes so critically important. The research on centenarians, people who live to 100 and beyond, is also revealing. When scientists look at the dietary patterns of the world's longest-lived populations, what do they find consistently? Legumes. Every single blue zone, the places in the world with the highest concentration of people, over 90 and 100, features legumes as a cornerstone of the diet. In Sardinia, it's fava beans and chickpeas. In Okinawa, it's soybeans. In the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, it's black beans. In Loma Linda, California, the healthiest community in America, it's lentils and beans. This is not a coincidence. These cultures have been running a multi-generational experiment on human longevity, and legumes keep showing up at the center of it. Not eggs, not protein shakes, legumes. So, how do you practically incorporate more lentils into your life? I want to make this easy for you because I know that knowing something is healthy and actually eating it regularly are two different things. Lentils are one of the most versatile foods you can possibly work with. Unlike dried beans, they require no soaking overnight and cook in just 15 to 20 minutes. You can make a simple lentil soup with onions, garlic, tomatoes, and spices in under half an hour. You can toss cooked lentils into salads for a protein boost. You can make lentil patties or use lentils as a base for a meat-free shepherd's pie. You can add them to stews, curries, and casseroles. Red lentils essentially dissolve when cooked, making them perfect for thickening soups and sauces without anyone even knowing they're there. There is no simpler, more affordable, more flexible protein source on the market. And once you start eating them regularly, once your gut adapts and your taste preferences adjust, you will find yourself craving them because food that makes your body feel good has a way of becoming food you want. My recommendation to you is to aim for at least half a cup of cooked lentils every day. Pair them with a source of vitamin C. Combine them with other plant foods, vegetables, whole grains, herbs, and spices to create a nutritional synergy that is genuinely greater than the sum of its parts. And if you're doing resistance exercise, which I strongly encourage everyone to do, regardless of age, time your lentil consumption around your workouts. Eat a meal containing lentils within 2 hours after exercise to take advantage of the post-workout window when your muscles are primed to absorb nutrients and begin the repair process. I want to close by zooming out and giving you the bigger picture. What I've described today is not just a story about one food, it's a story about what happens when we expand our understanding of nutrition beyond the simple idea that protein equals muscle. Building muscle, especially as we age, is a systems-level challenge. It requires adequate protein, yes, but it also requires controlling inflammation. It requires a healthy gut microbiome. It requires good blood flow. It requires stable blood sugar and well-functioning insulin. It requires adequate micronutrients. And it requires the kind of sustained, consistent nutritional support that only comes from eating real, whole, minimally processed foods day after day after day. Lentils check more of those boxes than almost any other food I can think of. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with you today. Eggs are not your enemy, but lentils might just be your greatest ally. They're cheap. They're versatile. They're backed by thousands of years of human history and an increasingly impressive body of modern science. And they are available to almost everyone, everywhere, right now. There are no excuses, there are no barriers, and there is no reason to wait. Start adding lentils to your meals this week. Your muscles, and frankly, your entire body, will thank you for it. I'm Dr. William Lee, and I'll see you in the next one. If this video helped you see something differently today, please share it with someone you care about because this kind of information should not be kept to yourself. Take care of your body. It's the only one you've got.